Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan once again steal the spotlight with a romantic scene at a recent event. The night was meant to be about industry achievements, dazzling lights, and a celebration of artistry. But the moment Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan stepped onto the red carpet, the focus shifted entirely, almost as if the entire event bent its orbit to revolve around them. It was the Asia Arts Awards Gala, held at the majestic Crystal Arc Hall in Shanghai. The sprawling glass dome overhead reflected thousands of tiny lights, casting an almost celestial glow over the crowd. Paparazzi flashes fired relentlessly, the noise of cameras clicking like a rainstorm. Celebrities in designer gowns and tuxedos mingled, but whispers spread quickly through the crowd. "They're here. Together." An entrance that stopped time. The doors swung open slowly, not rushed, but with a deliberate elegance that commanded attention. First came Wang Yibo, dressed in a black velvet suit that shimmered subtly under the lights, paired with a crisp white silk shirt slightly unbuttoned at the collar. His greenstone cufflinks caught and refracted the light every time he moved, hinting at luxury without trying too hard. Beside him, Xiao Zhan appeared like something out of a high-fashion dream. He wore a deep burgundy three-piece suit, the kind that made the color seem richer with every glance. His hair was styled effortlessly, soft waves framing a face that seemed both impossibly sharp and unbearably gentle. The moment their eyes met in the reflection of the glass entrance, a spark seemed to pass between them. Neither smiled widely, yet the corners of their lips lifted in the smallest, most private acknowledgement. The kind only two people with years of shared history could understand. It was silent for a heartbeat. And then, flash, flash, flash. The photographers erupted, calling their names in a frenzy. The subtle but powerful gesture. The real moment, the one that would set social media ablaze within minutes, happened as they approached the main carpet stage. A gust of wind swept through the open archway, catching Xiao Zhan's silk tie and tossing it across his chest. Without hesitation, Wang Yibo reached out, catching it with one hand and gently smoothing it back into place. His touch lingered, fingertips brushing Xiao Zhan's lapel as his eyes locked onto Xiao Zhan's for just a second too long. It wasn't staged. It wasn't part of the press choreography. It was natural. Intimate. And thousands of fans watching the livestream would later say it looked like something straight out of a romantic drama. Xiao Zhan's expression softened instantly, his gaze lowering for a split second as if hiding the smile threatening to form. But Yibo noticed. He always noticed. On-stage magic. When it came time for them to present an award together, they ascended the marble steps side by side. The entire hall seemed to lean forward, anticipating anything that might break the unspoken tension between them. The stage lights bathed them in a golden glow. Xiao Zhan took the microphone first, his voice steady and warm as he addressed the audience. Yibo stood beside him, hands loosely clasped in front of him, but his eyes never left Xiao Zhan's face. Not once. When it was Yibo's turn to speak, his usual calm tone carried a faint smile. "It's always a pleasure to share the stage with someone I've known for so long," he said, glancing sideways at Xiao Zhan. The words were professional enough for the cameras, but fans caught the subtle undercurrent, the weight of something personal woven into every syllable. Then came the award handover. The recipient, a rising young actor, stepped forward to receive the trophy. But as the applause filled the room, Xiao Zhan turned slightly toward Yibo, his lips moving in a quiet remark only Yibo could hear. Yibo's response. A quick, barely there smirk that sent fans into instant meltdown. The backstage moment that broke the internet. While the livestream captured their stage time, what no one expected was the leaked backstage footage that surfaced hours later. The clip, only 14 seconds long, showed Yibo and Xiao Zhan standing off to the side, away from the main traffic of celebrities. Xiao Zhan was adjusting his jacket, struggling with a stubborn cuff button. Without a word, Yibo stepped in, his fingers working deftly to fix it. Their heads leaned close, too close, until the space between them seemed almost non-existent. At one point, Xiao Zhan laughed softly, his eyes crinkling in that way that always disarmed Yibo. And in a moment so fleeting it could have been imagined, Yibo's hand brushed Xiao Zhan's wrist, a whisper of contact that felt charged with meaning. The clip exploded on social media within minutes, tagged endlessly with captions like, They can't hide it anymore. Romantic drama? No, this is real life. Dinner table sparks. Later that evening, the gala dinner began, a sprawling banquet under a ceiling of crystal chandeliers. Each table was lit by a soft golden lamp, and the scent of fresh orchids floated in the air. Though seating was arranged randomly, fate, or perhaps some clever event organizer, placed Yibo and Xiao Zhan side by side at the same round table. The two sat in relaxed postures, occasionally leaning toward each other to exchange quiet comments while the rest of the table was engaged in conversation. At one point, Xiao Zhan reached for the breadbasket just as Yibo did. Their fingers brushed, and Xiao Zhan, without missing a beat, slid the bread toward Yibo first. It was a tiny, polite gesture, but the warmth in his eyes gave it away. Yibo noticed. Again. Cameras caught them laughing at a shared joke, Xiao Zhan covering his mouth, Yibo tilting his head back slightly in silent laughter. Fans didn't even need audio to fill in the chemistry. The final scene that sealed the night. The gala's final segment was a group photo of all the night's attendees. The stage was crowded, everyone standing shoulder to shoulder. Amid the organized chaos, Yibo placed a steadying hand on Xiao Zhan's back as they navigated their way to the center. It was casual, protective, like instinct. Just before the flash went off for the official photo, Yibo glanced sideways. Xiao Zhan met his gaze. No smile, no exaggerated pose, just a quiet, unspoken connection that spoke volumes. The flash fired. The moment was immortalized. Aftermath, a frenzy of speculation. By the next morning, hashtags like #Yibo Xiao Zhan Gala Moment and #They Look at Each Other Like That trended across multiple platforms in China and internationally. Clips were slowed down, zoomed in, replayed endlessly. Fans dissected every micro-expression, every glance, every touch. Entertainment reporters tried to reach their agencies for a comment. As expected, both sides remained silent. But silence only fueled the fire. One particularly viral fan comment summed it up perfectly. They don't need to say anything. We can see it. We can feel it. Why this moment matters. For years, the relationship between Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan, whatever its true nature, has fascinated fans and the industry alike. They've weathered storms, intense scrutiny, and long stretches of not appearing together publicly. And yet, when they do, the energy is undone. Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan's entrance that froze the gala in time. It wasn't the kind of arrival that burst in with loud fanfare or glittering confetti, it was subtler than that. And perhaps that's why it was so powerful. The Asia Arts Awards Gala had already been in full swing for almost an hour. Dozens of actors, directors, and singers had made their way down the crimson carpet, posing for cameras, answering questions from eager reporters, and waving at cheering fans corralled behind velvet ropes. The air outside the Crystal Arc Hall was electric, filled with the rhythmic clicking of camera shutters and the occasional excited scream when a favorite star appeared. Then, at exactly 8:37 p.m., the atmosphere shifted. The silent pause before the storm. The grand glass doors at the far end of the carpet were closed. The press, used to an unbroken stream of arrivals, noticed the sudden lull. Their shouts died down, replaced by murmurs. Even the background chatter from the crowd seemed to fade as if the night itself was holding its breath. Through the glass, a shadow moved. A tall figure stepped into view under the warm golden glow of the foyer's chandeliers, the outline crisp against the shimmering interior. And then another figure appeared beside him. Every camera was suddenly trained on the entrance. The reporters didn't need confirmation, they knew. The first reveal. The doors opened slowly, the heavy glass moving with deliberate elegance. The first to step out was Wang Yibo. The black velvet suit he wore wasn't just tailored, it was sculpted to him. Each line emphasized his lean frame, the fabric catching the light with a texture that shifted from deep ink black to glimmers of midnight silver. The subtle confidence in his walk wasn't arrogance, it was something quieter, more deliberate. His gaze swept over the scene, not in the way of someone looking for cameras, but as though he were memorizing every detail, every light, every sound. The crowd erupted, his name chanted like a rhythm. Yibo, Yibo, over here. And then, Xiao Zhan stepped out. The second wave. If Yibo's arrival was like a sharp gust of night wind, Xiao Zhan's was a slow bloom of warmth. His deep burgundy suit seemed almost liquid under the lights, the fabric flowing with his every movement. The faint sheen of the silk lapel caught the flashes in a way that made it look like molten wine. His hair was perfectly styled, soft, natural waves framing his face, though a single rebellious strand fell across his forehead as he stepped forward. He didn't wave. He didn't rush. He simply lifted his chin slightly, offering the crowd that small, devastating half-smile that had made him a household name. And then, it happened. The moment their eyes met. They were still a few steps apart when their eyes locked. It wasn't dramatic, but it was undeniable. In the middle of flashing cameras and screaming fans, the noise seemed to drop away just for them. Xiao Zhan's smile tilted a fraction higher. Yibo's lips curved, not into a full grin, but into something softer, more private. It was a look that spoke of history, shared stages, sleepless nights on set, whispered jokes in green rooms. It was a look that made people watching forget that these were two megastars at a public event, because in that moment, they looked like two people seeing each other in a room full of distractions. Walking together. Without any verbal cue, they fell into step. Their paces matched naturally, as if choreographed. Yibo took the left side of the carpet, Xiao Zhan the right, but their shoulders stayed perfectly aligned. Every time they stopped for a photograph, their movements mirrored subtle shifts in posture, matching tilts of the head. The crowd was frantic. Even veteran photographers were craning for a better angle, desperate to catch the shot. One seasoned paparazzo muttered under his breath, "This is it. This is the front page moment." The tie incident. Halfway down the carpet, a playful gust of wind slipped through the open space between the venue's grand columns. It tugged at Xiao Zhan's silk tie, flipping it across his chest. In the middle of the chaos, Yibo's eyes flicked to it instantly. Without hesitation, without even breaking stride, he reached out. It wasn't rushed. His fingers caught the silk, smoothing it back into place with a gentle precision, brushing over Xiao Zhan's chest for just a second longer than necessary. Under the camera flashes, the greenstone cufflink on Yibo's wrist glittered, the moment frozen in a dozen photographs. Xiao Zhan glanced at him, amusement sparking in his eyes. His lips moved, just enough to form what looked like thank you. Yibo's reply was barely visible, but the small, satisfied lift at the corner of his mouth said enough. The media frenzy. The carpet's MC, who had been interviewing stars all night, tried to maintain composure as they approached. But even she stumbled over her words, caught in the force of their joint presence. "Wang Yibo, Xiao Zhan, welcome," she said, her voice betraying a hint of excitement. "It's been a while since we've seen you together at an event like this." Yibo gave a polite nod. "Yes, it's been a few years," he replied, his voice calm but carrying an undertone only the sharpest ears might catch. Xiao Zhan stepped in, his voice warmer. "But it feels like no time has passed at all." The crowd reacted instantly, screams, cheers, and a flurry of flashbulbs. The MC, sensing the gold in her hands, pressed further, "You both look incredible tonight. Did you coordinate your looks?" A glance passed between them, brief, almost imperceptible, but enough to make the MC blink, realizing she had stepped onto dangerous, tantalizing ground. "We didn't," Yibo said finally. "Maybe it's just coincidence." The way Xiao Zhan's lips twitched told everyone listening that they didn't believe him. The walk to the stage. After the interview, they continued down the carpet toward the hall entrance. Every step seemed slower now, deliberate, as though they were aware of the hundreds of eyes locked on them. Yibo adjusted his cuff, Xiao Zhan straightened his jacket, small, ordinary gestures that somehow looked cinematic in the golden light. As they neared the archway of the grand entrance, a group of fans screamed something in unison from behind the barricade. "You look perfect together." Neither turned, but Xiao Zhan's hand flexed slightly at his side, and Yibo's jawline tensed tiny, betraying signals that the words had landed. Crossing the threshold. The transition from the outdoor carpet to the interior foyer was like stepping from a dream into an even deeper one. Inside, the crystal arc hall glowed with cascading crystal lights that reflected off the marble floors in rivers of gold. The hum of conversation inside was a softer kind of noise, but when Yibo and Xiao Zhan entered, The heads that turned were immediate and many. For a moment, they paused just inside the doors, letting the ushers guide them toward the main hall. They didn't speak, but their presence was magnetic. Photographers trailed them even inside, desperate to capture the lingering tension between them. One photographer later confessed on social media, "I've covered hundreds of red carpets. But when those two walked in, I forgot to breathe for at least 10 seconds. It wasn't just about their looks, it was the way they moved in sync, the way they seemed to carry a world between them that none of us could touch." The private exchange. Before heading to there. The subtle but powerful gesture, a tie, a touch, and 1,000 stories. The red carpet was chaos. Flashbulbs popped in bursts so fast they almost blended into a strobe. The shouts from reporters overlapped, each voice trying to out-yell the other. "Yibo! Look here! Xiao Zhan, to your left. One smile together, please." And yet, in the middle of all this noise, something quieter happened, something that, by the end of the night, would eclipse every designer gown, every trophy, every headline. The moment before, Wang Yibo had noticed it the second they stepped onto the carpet together. Xiao Zhan's silk tie, a perfectly knotted piece of deep wine-red fabric, had been sitting just right in the foyer. But the breeze outside had a mischief to it. As they took slow, measured steps forward, a gust curled up from the open archway, flipping the tie across Xiao Zhan's chest in a playful but distracting way. Most people wouldn't have cared. Most would have let it flutter and focused on posing. But Yibo wasn't most people. From the outside, it was a blink-and-you-miss-it detail. Inside his head, it was something else entirely. A memory flashed years back, in the cramped dressing room of a variety show set. Xiao Zhan, fumbling with a stubborn bow tie, had laughed as Yibo wordlessly reached over to fix it. "You're too meticulous," Xiao Zhan had teased back then. "You're too careless," Yibo had replied. The words had been light, but the moment had stayed. The gesture. Now, without breaking stride or turning to the cameras, Yibo extended his left hand, catching the silk between two fingers. He smoothed it back into place against Xiao Zhan's chest in one fluid, unhurried motion. It wasn't rushed, not the way someone might swat at lint or adjust a friend's collar. This was deliberate. Careful. His fingertips brushed over the lapel, lingering just long enough to feel the faint warmth radiating from Xiao Zhan's body through the layers of fabric. Xiao Zhan glanced sideways, eyes locking onto Yibo's. And in that shared second, the noise of the gala seemed to fall away again. It was absurd how much could pass between them without a single word. A thank you. A you noticed. A you always notice. Reactions around them. The nearby photographers saw it. Oh, they saw it. Their lenses whirred as they zoomed in, snapping rapid-fire frames of Yibo's hand on Xiao Zhan's chest. The lighting hit just right, the emerald glint from Yibo's cufflink a sharp contrast against the deep red of Xiao Zhan's tie. One reporter's jaw actually dropped mid-question. A fan behind the barricade screamed, "Did you see that?" loud enough to make the people next to her cover their ears. The MC, standing a few meters away and waiting to interview them, looked momentarily dazed. She'd seen thousands of celebrity arrivals, but there was something almost intimate about this one, something unpolished and unplanned. A quiet exchange. Under the flashes, Xiao Zhan's lips moved,